Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story is from a brand new author by the name of Luke Reason, and I just know you guys are going to sink your teeth into this one. Of course, as ever though, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid Crew. And so, with that aside, let's get into tonight's story, entitled Werewolves of Terror Vale. Let's get straight into that. Chapter 7, Under Siege. On the second day within the Holy City, I decided that the orcs that accompanied us should be allowed within the city. I requested a meeting with the High Priest, and finally, after a couple of hours of waiting at our temporary residence, a single cleric escorted by 2 soldiers arrived at the doors to escort us to the High Priest. We entered the palace of the Holy City and saw the High Priest seated at the end of a long oaken table. As we approached the table, the High Priest spoke up, saying, "Welcome, my friends. What do I owe the pleasure of this meeting that you have set up with me?" I stepped forward and said, "My brother and I would like you to allow our orcs within your city. They were not the servants of the Night Stalker, but loyal and trustworthy allies that have proven themselves time and time again." After a few minutes of silence preceding my case to the High Priest, he finally spoke up again, saying, "Very well, but just remember that their actions are on your shoulders." After a week after my meeting with the High Priest of the Holy City, my master arrived before the walls of the Holy City with a vast army larger than anything I'd ever seen. Legions of orcs, trolls, ogres, 9 of 10 necro knights waited for the Dark Lord to signal the attack. My master yelled out my nickname in an angry and impatient tone of voice. "Silver Tongue, join me once more, or I will find your wife and children and gut them. Then I will feed them to my forces." I turned to my brother and said quietly, "Rhaegar, do you think we could sneak out of the city without being seen, along with our orcs, our Lycan brethren, the High Priest and a handful of holy clerics?" My brother replied nervously, "I am not sure, brother. Maybe, but the city's defenders will need to buy us enough time to escape and descend the mountains, with all of our company in tow." And I replied to my brother, saying, "We should try at the very least. I shall inform the High Priest of our decision, while you tell our forces to gather supplies and wait for me at the rear gate." And finally, after much arguing and debating, the High Priest and a small group of clerics followed me to the rear gate, where my brother Rhaegar, the 200 Lycan guards and our orcs awaited our arrival. I moved to the head of the company and led us out of the city, just in time as the first of the fireballs from our master's trebuchets landed amongst the buildings, setting them ablaze. By the time the last member of our company vacated the city, it was already half destroyed. I, however, intended on luring the Night Stalker into a trap. Deep within the city, I had created a magical firebomb that would engulf every living thing within the walls in flames. I knew that if a dark beast were to approach the bomb, it would go off. I wanted to show my now former master that I no longer feared him. 5 days later, we reached the city of Terror Vale, and I began weaving a spell upon the clerics and High Priest that would allow them passage through the barrier around the city. Once within our city walls, I explained to the High Priest of the former Holy City that his city and most of its inhabitants had to be sacrificed so that we might escape. He wasn't happy about it, understandably, but he nodded his head in agreement, and so that for us to plan a counter-attack, we needed to feign our defeat. My wife and children welcomed me at the gates with the biggest hugs. Although we were deeply in love, my wife and I knew we had our own responsibilities to attend to. My brother Rhaegar and I entered my royal residence and sat ourselves down at a long ornate wooden table meant for kings and queens. And after a couple of minutes, servants approached the table, laden with dishes full of delicious meats. After all, we are carnivores. We gorged ourselves on the sweet succulent meat imported from the other states of the Lycan Empire. And as we feasted, we allowed our advisors to enter the dining hall and sit at our table. They too gave in to their animalistic tendencies and joined us in our feasting. And after an hour, we began strategizing our next move and planning for the future, a future without the Dark Lord. A week later, an Orc scout arrived back from the city gates and informed us that the Night Stalker and his armies were on their way back to Arbor Haven and would arrive in just over a week's time. Given how large his army was during the siege of the Holy City, I have to say I'm not surprised. Have you ever seen 100,000 soldiers marching somewhere at the same time? It's incredible, but at the same time, very time-consuming. It's no wonder that they would take so long to get home. I had a plan in mind to deal with this colossal threat. However, it would take time to implement, and time was the very thing we were running out of. Firstly, we needed to make the bombs with a combination of metal and magic. Secondly, we needed at least 20 sacks in order to carry the bombs to Arbor Haven. And finally, I needed a partner. For this mission, I decided that my brother needed the training and infiltration and stealth. Werewolves of Terra Vale. Chapter 8. My Revenge. Let's get straight into that. After 3 days of planning, we decided to sneak into the ruins of Arbor Haven and plant the magic firebombs like the one I'd left for my former master in the Holy City. My brother and I snuck out of our city in the middle of the night. 3 days later, we arrived outside the outermost walls of Arbor Haven and carefully snuck into the ruined city. We began carefully and strategically planting the bombs throughout the city. And from a large tree, I watched the Night Stalker and what remained of his forces entered Arbor Haven through the main gates. Immediately after entering through the main gates, the first of 20 bombs exploded, killing 25% of the Night Stalker's army. However, my former master ordered his remaining forces to continue into the city, and that one little bomb was not going to stop them. And after about an hour, only the Night Stalker remained. And once the Night Stalker entered the city, I began descending an old oak tree, and once on the ground, I took one look around before transforming into my beastly form, and sprinting back to Terra Vale in a single day, as I no longer had anything to carry on my back. My brother had already departed as soon as we completed our mission. 3 days later, outside the walls of Terra Vale, I met up with my brother and praised him for his work during the mission. After a couple of days of rest, we, my brother and I, assembled our loyal Orc clan and a couple of hundred Lycans and departed the city of Terra Vale for Arbor Haven to check for survivors and search for any sign of the Night Stalker. Luckily for us, the Dark Lord was long gone. No doubt he's currently coercing the Wild Orc clans into joining him, which of course would be very bad news for us, considering there were more Wild Orcs than there were under the servitude of the Night Stalker. And seeing that there was no point in sticking around the fallen White City anymore, we decided to return to Terra Vale with a handful of injured and barely conscious trolls in tow. Once we finally arrived at Terra Vale, I ordered the Lycan medics to heal up the trolls, and then ordered a couple of 100 Lycan guards to accompany the trolls to the medical center in the middle of the city. And once the trolls had recovered from the surgery, I summoned the holy clerics to perform an exorcism on the trolls to rid any trace of the Night Stalker's power and influence from them. Once the trolls were cleansed from the darkness, I approached them and began asking them to join me. Unlike the Dark Lord, I wouldn't force anyone to join me. I'd always given them a choice. After a couple of days of recon on my former master's new army, I was feeling a little bit more confident about our upcoming war with the Night Stalker, especially as we had just secured the loyalty of the last of the trolls of Geramond. Not only that, but I had sent some of my Lycan brethren to find and convince as many of the Wild Orc clans as possible to join us. In addition, I'd also sent some of the holy clerics to the secret dwarven nations to forge an alliance with them. Finally, the board was set, and the pawns were plentiful to be sacrificed for the greater good of the world of Geramond. After a couple of days we began to get nervous, as we had not heard from any of our scouts concerning the Night Stalker's movements. It was then that I realized that the strong hive-mind psychic connection I had with all the Lycans of Garamond had vanished. The Night Stalker had been eradicating all the Lycans throughout the world, so that now the only Lycans left alive are myself, my family, and a couple of hundred within our city walls. Werewolves of Terror Vale. Chapter 9. Darkness, Civil War. Let's get straight into that. Over the next couple of days, I, along with my brother and my other lieutenants, Mal'Ganis and Remus, began speculating where our former master would be residing. On the third day, an orc guard knocked on the meeting room door and proceeded to tell us that Wulfric had arrived outside the city gates with 1,000 elven Lycan survivors. I abandoned the meeting and immediately rushed through the city to the city gates to welcome back my comrade, who I had thought had been butchered by the Night Stalker's hands. We embraced in a bear hug that would have broken the bones of any regular mortals, and then he stepped back and said to me, "Our master has taken up residence in Starine. We were attacked seemingly from out of nowhere. The few elven Lycans who stand before you are all that remain of their people. Brother, we must strike back. We must cast off the shackles of darkness from the world and restore peace." And I bared my teeth before replying, "The Night Stalker won't know what hit him." I then turned around to address the elven Lycan, shouting out, "You have all been betrayed by a Dark Lord, who was meant to be your friend and ally. For this vile betrayal, I promise I won't rest until the blood of your fallen is repaid 1,000-fold, and the Night Stalker is destroyed." They all erupted into cheers, and then suddenly, from amongst the crowd, one of them stepped forward and said to me, "My lord, nothing can kill your former master except for the legendary blade, Excalibur. However, it is currently located deep underneath the Holy City, which is currently heavily guarded by the Night Stalker's elite guard. You may have to sacrifice a few thousand lives to acquire it." The very next day, myself, my brother, and my lieutenants gathered in the Great Hall to plan our war strategies against the Night Stalker. Eventually, it was decided that my brother and I would find the sword, with a couple of hundred Lycans accompanying us, whilst Wulfric, Remus, and Mal'Ganis led the main bulk of the army. 1 Necro Knight astride a black fire drake, 1,000 elven Lycans, 800 human Lycans, or purebloods, 200 trolls, the last of their kind, and roughly 8,000 orcs to engage and distract the Night Stalker long enough for me to find and claim Excalibur. After 2 more days of planning and preparation, we set off for our respective missions. My brother and I, along with our infiltration squad, approached the Church of Terror Vale, a brand new addition to the city, so that the High Priest could, with the help of his clerics, teleport us to the Holy City. And the guards of the Night Stalker station within the Holy City were in momentary shock and disbelief as we seemingly appeared from thin air and started attacking them. I smiled with glee and licked my lips for the bloodbath that was about to happen, for they were not orcs but corrupted men, and the blood of men always tasted good. Imagine finding that perfect bottle of red wine. That's what it's like for us when we feed on the blood of our enemies. We reached the walls and started climbing whilst arrows flew towards us from the battlements, but none of us died to them. Once the city walls were taken, I ordered for a handful of our company to stay behind, keep to the shadows, and send a runner if they see anything or anyone approaching, whilst the rest of us proceeded forward into the city. After a short while, we reached the entrance to the city catacombs and proceeded down into the very bowels of the Holy City. The air was thick with the smell of decaying bones and disease-ridden rats. We travelled in single file through the narrow tunnels, until finally coming out into what looked to be an old monastery. Where the altar would normally be stood, a large sword stead fast in solid rock. "Excalibur!" I exclaimed in awe and wonder. I took a few steps forward, cautiously and tentatively, testing for any traps, but there were none. I then strolled forwards confidently and grasped the sword with one hand and pulled. and at first nothing happened. But then ancient inscriptions began to materialize on the blade, saying, "Whomsoever pulls the sword from the stone, should he be worthy, shall possess the power of death to the undead." And finally, after what felt like hours, we reached the surface and ran through the empty city to the outer walls, where we reconvened with our guards on the wall. After collecting all of our equipment, we set off for the woodland realm to confront the Night Stalker and his army. And we arrived 2 days later to see the elven-lichened city of Starine under siege from thousands of orcs. Caught off guard, our enemies were not expecting an attack from behind, and luckily for us, the last remaining dwarf clans arrived at the exact same time as us. Things were looking up. Sensing that he was about to lose the war, the Night Stalker decided to challenge me to single combat. I accepted the challenge, and collected myself for what could possibly be the last and toughest fight of my life. Both mine and the Night Stalker's soldiers formed a circular formation around us in order to view the spectacle and stop either combatant from fleeing. The Night Stalker wielded a massive blade 4 feet in length, and upon his body he wore black scale armor, probably made from dragon hide. He moved with such speed, and with each stroke of his sword, he made me stagger back at least 10 paces, after I attempted to block with my severely damaged and worn shield. Finally, after what felt like an hour of being battered and bruised, I saw my opportunity to strike back. While he was wailing on me with his great sword, I noticed his left boot kept buckling under the pressure produced by his swings. Suddenly, without warning, I struck his left leg with Excalibur, cleaving it clean off. He howled in pain. Although his body wasn't visible to the naked eye, his body still reacts the same way as any other creature, immortal or mortal. Immediately following my first strike, I then chopped off his other leg, followed by his leading arm, leaving him crippled and debilitated. I wanted him to suffer, to feel unimaginable pain, like the pain I feel every time I transform. And finally, after hours of torturing my former master, I ended the war and the 100 years of darkness by lopping the head off the Night Stalker, with Excalibur simultaneously breaking the Lycan curse and freeing the world of Geramond. I held up the helmet of the Night Stalker and yelled out to the orcs that served him, "Your master is dead. Surrender and you will be spared. The war is over." The legions of orcs that were forced into serving the Night Stalker turned around and began to run away. I ordered all of my troops to stand down, and together we all marched back to Terra Vale, to once more retire from war and carnage and live out our lives in peace, a well-earned peace that we had been craving for over a century. Epilogue. It has been 20 years since the Great War, where I slew the Night Stalker. My wife and I raised my second son together in that time, between then and now. My eldest son is now 20, and my second son is 18. We are enjoying our time together, in peace as a family. And sure, I still have to govern my people, and that of the elves, but I make time for what's truly important: family. I must admit sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night with a look of pure fear written across every inch of my face, and sweat absolutely dripping from my body, like I've come out of a swimming pool, the image of the Night Stalker permanently etched into my brain. My eldest son and I lead the cured, as we call ourselves since our curse was lifted. And as a cured man, I find myself growing very weak and frail, practically every day, as it was only the lycanthropy that was keeping me from growing old. There is so much I wish I could still teach my sons, Arthur and Bane. But at 102 years of age, I now know I am not long for this world. Maybe another year at most. My name is Morgrim, formerly known as Romulus the Lycan, who broke the curse. And if you are reading this, this was my story. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Certainly another one. Wow. What a fantastic, ferocious adventure there. And from the incredible mind of Luke Reason. Brand new and exclusive to the DMT Forest of Fear channel. Absolutely huge congratulations to you, Luke, for penning this incredible hit. As I'm sure you've seen from the comments, your work has been received extremely well from the wonderful folks at home. I honestly can't wait to see what else you produce in the future and wait with bated breath for any updates to these characters and storyline. Well, guys and girls as ever, you know the drill. Please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid crew. Now, if you have a story to tell or possibly have penned something along this caliber that you think we could all sink our teeth into, then please do get in contact with me at the contact email, which is as on screen. Contact thedeadone@gmail.com. I really look forward to hearing from you. I hope you're all well and happy, taking a fight back to life, guys, and getting back into the swing of things. And I hope you're looking forward to the Halloween season as much as I. But above all, guys, remember, be safe, not sorry. And sure, I still have to govern my people and that of their elves, but I make time for what's truly important. Family. Fuck the neighbours.
My mouth's burning. My mouth's burning from something.
Probably too many sweets.
No, my mouth's
Burning from something. Probably too many sweets.
No, it's not sweet. It says burning hot.
I don't know, kid.
Well, that's spider thing. Oh, it's monkey thing.
Monkey face.
No, monkey thingy bob.
What monkey thingy bob?
Oh, it's that thing that we had together. And I was cutting that eating.
Oh, Bombay mix.
Yeah.
Monkey. I wondered who ate that.
I did like that.
Okay.
Luke got it.
Once the Night Stalker entered the holy city. Fuck you. It's incredible, but at the same time, very time-consuming. It's no wonder that they would take so long to get home. I had a plan in mind to deal with this colossal threat. I had a plan in mind to deal with this colossal threat, however. It would take time. Fuck you. They too gave in to their animalistic tendencies and joined us in our feasting. And after an hour, we began Strategy. Did you just fart? I need to know. Did you fart? Otherwise people are going to go, oh, he farted in the recording. 9 of 10 Necro Knights waited for the Dark Lord to signal the attack. My master yelled out my nickname in an angry and impatient tone of voice. I can't remember the evil guy's voice. Simpson. Smithers.
Smithers.